Hi there, I'm Marshall Masters, publisher of the YourOwnWorldUSA.com website and the Colburn Bible. I want to ask you a question about the headlines. Does it seem like they're going from grim to grimmer these days? And does it make you wonder if the prophecies and predictions about 2012 are really coming to pass? Well, if that's the case, then this program is going to be really helpful for you, because we're going to talk about something I call the 5 stages of catastrophism. And it's really going to help you move through this very easily. I've studied it for 10 years and published it in my book, Planet X Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide. But in this program, we're going to distill it down into a concept that's easy enough for you to master in 10 weeks or less. And what does that mean? It means your chances of getting through the days ahead will increase substantially. So let's start that journey.
Up to 2012, there must be books upon your shelf. Information you can get World Wide Web. Don't follow those leaders who watch the parking meters. They do no more, but will not tell. They just like to sell, and anyone with any sense it already thought it out. So come together, everyone, and shout one world.
If you're wondering, how do you know when you've entered the first stage of catastrophism? That's simple. It begins with a question. What is this? We all ask that question. I did. You did. That's why you're here. And so, the first stage of catastrophism then is going to end with you making a choice. Which fork in the road are you going to take? Are you going to go that way, which is the easy path that most people take away from the topic, away from the question? Or are you going to take the more difficult path, that way, that leads to awareness, which then leads to knowledge, planning, and preparation? That's the issue you have to decide first. Now, here's a couple of thoughts. For those of you who answer your question, what is this, by saying, I don't have time enough for this crap, well then, yes, you're taking the path well traveled. And you're saying something clever like, I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. But here's the brutal reality of that. And that is, the people who tend to suffer the worst during a cataclysmic event are the ones who simply do not see it coming. So you need to think about that. So who are the kind of folks that follow that smaller path? Well, they break down into various different groups. Of course, there's the elites and their minions. That's about as obvious as a throwdown gun. So, enough for the dark side. Let's talk about everyone else. First off, there are the perceptives. These are the folks who have been following our research for 10 years. And they tend to be in the government, military, or some agency related to that, or contractors. And they're a good audience, and I get a lot of interesting tips from them, anonymously, of course. And then there's the second group I call the risk takers. These are the people who work with banks, insurance companies, security firms, and so forth. They buy a lot of our books, and as a publisher, I dearly do love them. And then there's the third group, and these are the ones that really are near and dear to my heart. I call them the dreamers. Now, most of them are having 2012 precognition. In other words, dreams and visions, intuitions, if you will, about events that are coming up. And then there are the ones that are multi-generational, and they fascinate me. Folks that, well, the information has been handed down from one generation to the next, and so they know about 2012, not because they read it in a book or saw a headline, but because their grandparents or parents or an aunt or an uncle took them on their knee when they were young and taught them all about it. And now what they heard as a child is coming to pass, and that's how they find us. So with this group of dreamers in mind, let's move on to stage 2. Well, here we are at stage 2, the 5 stages of catastrophism. Now, on the first stage, which I call, I don't have time for this crap, 98% of the world has already taken the easier path. What they don't know is that it's a circular path, and it's going to bring them back to that same point time and again. But they'll deal with that in their own way and in their own time, and that's how it should be. But you're here. You're in stage 2. And this is not a friendly time. Stage 2 of the 5 stages of catastrophism begins the same for everyone. You literally say, "Oh crap." And then the next question that comes right out of your mind is, "Am I nuts?" At this point, you're laying in bed and the scenarios are going through your mind. You're seeing catastrophes, tsunamis, floods, earthquakes, and so forth, and you and your loved ones trying to survive the events. Now, I know this is a terrible time for people. It was a terrible time for me. But I want to stress one thing to you that's really, really important. This is the most valuable thing you could be doing right now. As nuts as that may sound, it is, because what's really happening is you're programming your mind. And so what really happens when you're sitting there, laying in bed, and visualizing all of this is that you are creating new neural circuits in your mind so that you can process this information. And when catastrophic events are beginning to happen and other people are going, "Oh my God, what do we do? Let's wait for the government to tell us something." You've already known what to do for some time, and you are doing it. This is the very reason why I was the principal author and publisher of Planet X Forecast and 2012 Survival Guide. If you were to distill this entire book down into one thing you need to remember, I'll tell you what it is. It's a one-day advantage. And what does a one-day advantage mean? A one-day advantage means while everyone else is watching Dancing with the Stars and text messaging for their famous couples, you already know a day ahead of time when to get the kids and the wife in the car and book it out of Dodge. And what does that give you, that one-day advantage? It gives you clear roads, plenty of gas, easy access to food, and a wide availability of lodging. That's what a one-day advantage means. Now, I also have something else that's going to be helpful for you, especially those of you who are saying, "Am I crazy?" If you're wondering if you're seeing something unusual or a fluke, then I would suggest you start with our small book, Planet X and the Colburn Bible Connection. And we originally published this as a supplement to the Colburn Bible, but what we found is that it is extremely helpful for those who are just now coming into awareness and wondering if they're nuts about what they see. So why is this? This book really ties you to prophecies and predictions that have come down from thousands of years and from numerous sources. This book is really helpful. It's a short read. In one day, you're going to have the answer to your question, "Am I nuts?" And at that point, you're going to know whether this topic is your cup of tea or not. And so that's really the best place to start. With that, I do want to caution you about one thing which I call the awareness rut. And I see this quite often, and it's part of being in awareness, and people are going, oh man, you know, if I just keep studying it and studying it and studying it, then I know I don't have to take responsibility for the information and do something about it and begin the planning. And it's like getting your tire in your car stuck in the mud. You know, you might think you're doing something important. You're spinning the wheels forward, spinning the wheels backwards, lurching back and forth. The motor's whirring, you're making lots of noise. Wow, you're really jamming out there. You think you're making some progress, but the fact is, your tire's in the rut. You're not going to make progress until you're trucking it down the road. So watch out for the awareness rut. You've got to push yourself through these cycles, or this whole process is not going to work well for you. Now, with that, at the end of stage 2, and you're going to know you're at the end of stage 2 when you feel the need inside you to sound the alarm. And that's going to put you square into stage 3. And of all of the 5 stages of catastrophism, stage 3 is the worst. And so, well, let's get on to it. Well, here we are, stage 3. It's the worst of it. It's the one where I see the worst amount of personal damage happening. Because stage 3 always begins with sounding the alarm. And it's an act of love. It's something you do naturally. You care about the folks around you in your inner circle, and you want to make sure that they understand the threats that they're facing. And then here's where people just get themselves into a whole lot of trouble. Because while you are well along in the process, they're not. Remember back at the beginning, stage 1, I don't have time for this crap. That's where they're at. I don't have time for this crap. And so what's going to happen is that you're going to scare them and make them angry, and then they will in turn mock and ridicule you. And you're going to be ostracized in your own personal circle of friends, families, and co-workers. Well, you don't have to do that. I want to talk about a little technique I call smelling like a dog. What you do is imagine that you're in a movie theater and you are the only one in that theater that can smell as good as a dog. Everyone else smells like a human. And so let's imagine that you smell what you believe to be a small electrical fire in the basement underneath the auditorium. But you're not fully certain yet. What do? Do you shout fire? And then next thing you know, you're drinking tea with the police at the station that night? No. What you do is you just get up from your seat and quietly go to the exits. Make sure that they're clear and unobstructed. And then if things do evolve to a fire, a real threat, then you'll be standing next to the alarm. You can hit the alarm and tell everyone in the theater, this way, this way. This is how you deal with stage 3, because the number 1 rule of this knowledge in the 5 stages of catastrophism is that you never, never, never evangelize it. People have to come to it in their own way and in their own time. So how does it work out in a practical sense? Well, I call it the popcorn people theory. All right, yeah, I know it sounds odd, but it really will explain the whole thing. Now, remember back before I said when people are at stage 1 and they say, I don't have time for this crap, that they should start a journey that's going to loop back to that same decision point. And that's literally what happens. Now, how does that work for you? And will your loved ones that you want to warn, will they loop back and will they come into awareness and appreciate your gestures of love in sounding the alarm? Eventually, yes, in most cases. And that's what the popcorn people thing proves. Now, let's imagine we're making popcorn the good old-fashioned way, like Mom did. Remember, she put some oil, she put some corn in the pot, get it on top of the range and shake it back and forth. And at first we'd hear pop, 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 pop. And we know, oh, those are the big fluffy ones. Those are the ones you get them first. But it goes pop, pop, pop a little faster, and the pop, pop, pop a little faster. And the next thing you know, man, it sounds like World War I. Pop, 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 pop. And when you're a kid, wow, is that fun. Now, of course, you're going to have corn sits at the bottom of the pan, and you can nuke it until coal. It's never going to pop, but that's just the way things are. So what you have to do is just wait for those you love to come around to the point where they pop. One book I could recommend to you is one I wrote back in 2002, published in 2003, God's Child Covenant, Return of Nibiru. And this is a great way to introduce folks. You just leave it around the house, maybe they'll pick it up and read it. And while that's all going on, you continue to plan in the background. You can do little things that make a whole lot of difference. Building your own skill sets, setting aside basic supplies. You know, if you're buying a month's worth of pinto beans and peanut butter to put in the garage, you know, that's a common sense thing, 30-day supply of food. But in a bad situation, whoa, that could be the difference. So with that, we're going to move on to stage 4. And personally speaking, stage 4 for me was the best of the 4 stages to that point. Well, this brings us to stage 4 in the 5 stages of catastrophism, and I look back on my stage 4 experience as a good one. Now, what happens in stage 4 is that you really just come to the realization that you got to stand alone in your knowing. Now, don't go out, proselytize others. What you really need to do is immerse yourself into your research, and so that you improve your own skills. But also, it's a time to connect with like-minded others. Now, this is the reason why I created the PlanetXTownHall.com message board. Now, it's free to get on, although we do have a very strict enrollment procedure. When you join, you're going to be able to talk with like-minded others. Folks that are mostly in stage 4, but also stage 2 and stage 3. The nice thing about it is that you don't get heckled and harangued by family, co-workers, and friends. These are folks that understand what you're going through because they're going through it the same. Now, when you're in 4, what you really want to do is focus on your research. And here's where I found a book that really helped me, and in ways I didn't expect. It's called the Colburn Bible. I originally published the Colburn Bible because I was looking for historical evidence of past cataclysms and the causality. And the Colburn Bible gives you that information. It explains that something the Egyptians called the destroyer was responsible for the deluge, Noah's flood, sinking of Atlantis, and the 10 plagues of Exodus. But while I came to the book for those bits of information, that's not what I enjoy most about it. What I enjoy is the experience. Because you see that when these books were written, after the 10 plagues of Exodus, people really were further advanced than we think today, and in many respects, more advanced in their thinking than we are today. And that connection to the past is elegant. And they use language in ways that we don't today. They have an economy with words that is both elegant and insightful at the same time. And so, as you read it, you feel a sense of continuity with our ancestors that will give you hope for the future. An excellent companion to the Colburn Bible is Planet X in the Colburn Bible Connection by Greg Jenner. And what this does is it just distills down all of the relevant prophecy and predictions and how it connects with what we're seeing from other sources, both secular and non-secular. As we move on through 4, what I want to tell you is go slow. You know, with the first 3 stages, the quicker you get through them, the easier it is. In stage 4, savor it. Enjoy it, even if it's a little lonely, because this is a time when you really immerse yourself in the research and you gain a mastery that gives you confidence to deal with whatever's going to come down the pike. And as you go through this in a gentle way, you will come to the question that brings you to the end of stage 4. That is there hope for the future? And that question you're going to answer in stage 5, where I am also going to have a bit of a refreshment. When you arrive at stage 5, you realize that the universe is unfolding as it should. Not that it makes the process any more pleasant, but at least in stage 5, things do not shock you as they used to before. That does not mean you are not saddened. You're saddened. And you're saddened in ways that you might not even expect right now. But the most important thing is that these events, when they occur, do not immobilize you or paralyze you with fear. You're beyond that. And when you do that, you can quickly assess the situation, formulate a plan, and take action on that plan. And what survival experts will tell you is that this is the most important asset you can have in your survival toolkit. Not the gizmos and the gadgets, but the ability to assess your situation, formulate a plan, and take action, even if it's not the best plan. That is what stage 5 gives you. Now, sure, you're not going to be shocked as easily, but you will be saddened, and you will be saddened in new ways. So then, how do you know when you've arrived at the doorstep, shall we say, of stage 5? You know you've entered stage 5 when you begin searching for hope and a life beyond fear. You come to the realization that yes, those 4 stages are centered on the crap we cause ourselves through our own fear. Our fear of death, our fear of rejection, the fear of mockery, and so forth. You realize that fear truly is the knife's edge of death. Follow your fears, and you'll inevitably stumble upon a blade. Once you've gotten past the crap, all the personal aspects, the materialism, everything that induces fear, you now have to, well, you got to fill your cup back up again, because once the fear is gone, you've got an empty cup. Well, lucky for me, I've got some nice hot tea the wife made for me, and it's a little refreshing out here in the stream. So what am I going to fill it back up with? Well, mortality. Not my own, but that of our species. When you understand the need to live in service to others so that our species can endure, then you're in it for the species. And that will change your view of the world. It will empower you in new ways. Ways in which you not only can spare your own life, but spare the life of others as well. When you're in it for the species, you have something that, no matter how difficult the journey is, your cup's full. That is tasty tea. Well, here we are where we started at stage 1. Remember? Stage 1? I don't have time for this crap. Well, we know. Folks are going to cycle through this. And you know what you got to do? You got to be there when they do decide that they're going to move on to stage 2. They're going to need your help. And just as important, you're going to need them, because we can't do this alone. You need to go through it with others. That's the loving way. Now, once you're beyond the 5 stages of catastrophism, what comes next? Well, that's where you really do something interesting. It's where you begin developing your own philosophy, or paradigm, if you will, for surviving a cataclysm. Now, I'm not talking about the kind that, 3 days of preparation and there you go. I'm talking about maybe 3 years or more. And you're going to have something that helps you get through that one step at a time, even when you don't feel like taking that next step. Now, for me, that translated into a project that was called the 2012 Wisdom of the Elohim, which resulted in audios, videos, and a book, was my way of finding a paradigm, a worldview, if you will, to help get through the difficult times ahead. And that's what this book does. And why is it important to have your own personal paradigm of survival or a philosophy? It's because right now, here we are in the woods, and golly gee, it's been a beautiful day. But it's not going to always be beautiful. Life will be tough. It will be brutal. And it's going to take every bit of energy you have just to make the next step on the path. And what's going to give you that strength will be your belief system. Now, all of the ologies and all of the isms that bind together Western civilization all have one thing in common. Not one has ever survived a global cataclysm. There are paradigms that have, those of indigenous cultures such as the Hopi and the Aborigines. But for us, well, we need to invent one for ourselves. And that's what you need to do after you have finished the 5 stages of catastrophism. And while you may feel that I've just told you how to get halfway there, let me tell you one thing. That strategy, that philosophy that you develop for yourself will be the most joyous part of your journey, because you will understand the everlasting strength it is going to give you to endure the years ahead. And as I always say on my radio shows, destiny comes to those who listen and fate finds the rest. So learn what you can learn, do what you can do, and never give up hope. And this is Marshall, and I'll catch you on the backside.
Up to 2012, it's time to search for yourself, to find out who you are. You are a star. The mystery yet untold is about to unfold. You've got to search the truth